By positivity of test scenarios. Let's continue our talk about the types of testing. By positivity of test scenarios, we have positive testing, negative testing. Example: let's look at a simple scenario. Don't execute it, just read. 1. Go to www.sharelane.com. 2. Click the sign up link. 3. Enter some value into the zip code text field. 4. Press the continue button. There are two types of data that the user can supply as some value. The first type of data is valid data, which is 5 digits. The second type of data is invalid data, which is anything other than 5 digits. A new user registration can continue only if the user provides a 5-digit zip code. In other words, if a user executes a normal error-free scenario by submitting valid data. But in reality, users will make errors, and we should consider that during software development. Example: the file checkout.py uses the function getCCPResult to get the success code of a credit card transaction. 0 is success, 1 is a failure. The function getCCPResult connects to the server of the credit card processor. For example, Wells Fargo sends out some certain information, and once the success code is received, checkout.py makes a decision on whether the checkout is complete or not. Now imagine the following situation. A user enters valid credit card info and that card has enough balance for transaction, but getCCPResult returns 1 instead of 0. This can happen for a number of reasons. One of them is that the connection to the credit card processor server is down, so we have a situation where there is no user fault and a malfunction exists within the system. Negative testing checks situations that involve user error and/or system failure. Positive testing checks situations where the software is used in a normal, error-free way and the system is assumed to be sound. Below are some important points. 1. As a rule, negative testing finds more bugs. There are two main reasons for this. A. Errors and failures can take many shapes and forms, so the PM and the programmer might not predict some of them, and thus the code will not be ready to handle certain abnormal situations. Leo Tolstoy put it this way: happy families are all alike. Every unhappy family is unhappy in its own way. In other words, abnormalities have a great diversity. B. When writing and developing features, it is natural to concentrate on the normal usage and normal functioning of the software because that's how we provide value for our users. In other words, users don't come to ShareLane to see error messages. They come to buy books, and books can be bought only if the user executes an error-free scenario and our system is working normally. 2. Negative testing involves more creativity and puzzle solving than positive testing. This happens for the same reason as above. Errors and failures can take many shapes and forms. 3. Both negative and positive tests must be performed as part of functional testing, but the rule is that we must execute positive tests first. Why? If the functionality doesn't work during normal usage, it doesn't really make sense to check if it works with abnormal usage. It's like checking to see if a corpse has chickenpox. 4. Error handling is about A. How the system responds to errors made by users. For example, how the system responds if a web form is submitted with invalid data in a required field. Or B. How the system reacts to errors that happen when the software is running. For example, this error message. Test portal more stuff Python errors register with error.py provides info that the file register with error.py calls the undefined function getFirstPage. 5. An error message is a message that provides information about errors. An error message is an important measure that guides users in case of mistakes. An error message is usually delivered via a web page by a code that is specifically written for handling user errors. Gives debugging info to developers. An error message is usually provided by an interpreter or a compiler or by some logging mechanism. For example, the Apache web server records errors in a special error log. By time of test execution. Before any release, alpha testing. After a beta release, beta testing. Alpha testing is done before any type of release. When you hear alpha testing, it refers to the time when the testing is done, not how testing was done. As a rule, alpha testing is done inside the company. In some cases, alpha testing is outsourced to other companies. We'll be talking a lot about the types of testing techniques used by testers during the alpha stage. Beta testing is done after a beta release. The value of beta testing is letting some representatives from our target audience try the product before we release it in the open. By degree of automation, manual testing, semi-automated testing, automated testing. Manual testing. This is testing without the help of any test automation programs. The testing techniques for manual functional testing are core elements of black box testing methodology. Semi-automated testing. This is manual testing done with partial usage of the test automation, usually in form of helpers. For example, you can automatically generate a new user account with Account Creator and manually add a book to the shopping cart. Test case with credit card is typical example of semi-automated testing. Automated testing. This is testing completely done by running test automation tools. Simple yet valuable automated testing can be done with link checkers. We are not going to cover automated testing in our course, except a quick talk during the lesson on regression testing. By preparedness. Formal, documented testing. Ad hoc testing. Formal, documented testing is a planned activity that requires the usage of test documentation. For example, test cases. Ad hoc testing is done without any preparation. Ad hoc testing relies on knowledge of the software and/or common sense and/or intuition. Doing ad hoc testing, the tester just follows his intuition and common sense, trying to find bugs. Ad hoc testing is usually used as a smoke test, as a measure for extra peace of mind on top of formal, documented testing, as exploratory testing when a new tester comes to a company where code is being written and should be tested ASAP, when everybody in the company does testing before some big release. In other cases where there are no test cases. Ad hoc testing often produces amazing results. Sometimes you just test software without any plan and come up with unusual scenarios that help catch nasty bugs. Lesson recap. 1. Positive testing checks situations where the software is used in a normal, error-free way and the system is assumed to be sound. 2. Negative testing checks situations involving user error and/or system failure. 3. Positive test cases must be executed before negative test cases. 4. Error handling is A. How the system responds to errors made by users, or B. How the system reacts to errors that happen when the software is running. 5. An error message is an important measure that guides users in the case of mistakes, gives debugging info to developers. 6. Alpha testing is done before any type of release. When you hear alpha testing, it refers to the time when the testing is done, not how the testing was done. 7. Beta testing is done after a beta release. 8. Manual testing is done without the help of any test automation programs. 9. Semi-automated testing is manual testing done with partial usage of the test automation, usually in form of helpers. 10. Automated testing is completely done by running test automation tools. 11. Formal, documented testing is a planned activity that requires the usage of test documentation. For example, test cases. 12. Ad hoc testing is done without any preparation. Ad hoc testing relies on knowledge of the software and/or common sense and/or intuition.